the SM Media Podcast Network.
Hi folks, and welcome to the latest episode of The Ref's View, part of the SM Media Podcast Network. I'm Scotty Pike. It is always a pleasure to be your host, and it is always a delight to be joined by Steve Conroy.
Hello, hi. You're looking particularly well this week.
I'm doing fine, yeah. It's the sun. It's a bit rainy, but it's still mind of summer, kind of. It's not too far away. Like we're getting there. We're getting to obviously the kind of end of the season as well. Top six has been confirmed. Pretty quiet weekend, in all honesty. Not
Absolutely, yeah. What a contrast to every other weekend virtually that we've had. I've really been nitpicky coming up with one thing to say about one of the other games. So I know that there was nothing happening if I'm talking about that.
Right. Well, we recorded last week, and we actually, like, knowing us timings was off again. We did hear that there was potentially stuff coming out about the dismissal of Alan Muir, but we obviously didn't want to talk about it until it was officially confirmed. It was confirmed literally 5 minutes after I put this through editing, so it shows you just the timing we've got at the moment. But just in terms of the news, Alan Muir has obviously been relieved of his duties. Still, from what I understand, going to be kind of kept in a kind of consultancy role. So I don't think he's like fully moved away, but it's still like one of those kind of ones. He's taking off VAR duties anyway. We know that for a fact. What do you think? Like before, we get into the kind of ifs, ands, or buts. Do you think this is quite harsh or the right call?
I could, and you know where I'm going to go with this. Now, he's had two absolute howlers this season, which, and I've always got on fine with Alan, and I think he was treated badly with the SFA in his FIFA days. But he made two complete howlers, and there's no way back from that. But my issue with it is that if they see fit to sack him for that, and that's up to them, and you have to draw the line somewhere. You have one absolutely shocking decision, then somebody has a word with you, and you have another absolutely shocking decision. Where else do you go? But it shouldn't be one rule for one and one rule for another. And you know who I'm talking about with it, who has been just as bad as Alan has. Every bit as bad, but he gets rewarded with a League Cup final appearance this season, and he was given 2 games for the weekend. So I'm not arguing, I'm not disputing that Alan had to go if that's the decision. But if that's the line in the sand, then it has to be the line in the sand for everybody.
I think the issue I've got with it is, and this was kind of where I was going at the time, particularly with the incident in the Cup final. I think if you say in a few years' time, who was Alan Muir, he will be known as the guy who got that decision wrong, and then he went and done it again with the incident with Johnson, with the ball being out, which we've seen something similar this weekend, and I think it's different. I think it was very well done how they managed to get to that decision this week, as we'll get into. But I think the issue is, and again, it's maybe the Graham Poll thing, where all you'll think about with Alan Muir is that decision. Do you know what I mean? The 3 yellow cards in the one game with Graham Poll, the Dougie McDonald thing, like that type of label with Alan Muir, which is quite unfair because I don't think up until as you said, he maybe was harshly treated back in the day, but you can't in this day and age do that, particularly in this environment, and live to tell the tale. It is just that simple. And
it's a brutal game we're in. But it has to be equally as brutal for everybody.
Yeah.
And Alan's been a stalwart. He really has. And personally, I feel quite sad that he's gone out on this note. As you say, people are going to remember the Alan Johnson and it looks more out than in nonsense. And I'm really sorry that that's going to be what people remember. But apparently he's still being kept on as an observer, from what I understand.
Yes, which again, like, is still keeping half a foot in the thing, but not having the responsibility. And I think if the VAR audio wasn't released, I think he would have been fine, which is my opinion. Well, certainly, I don't think there's a public clamour like there was for him.
Yeah.
And again, we can turn that round and say, "Oh, you're saying, oh, the VR audio shouldn't be released." I'm not saying that at all. What I think is that in this situation, I don't think the VAR audio helped him at all. I think that was probably what let him down massively.
Oh,
What he said,
without a
the
doubt,
two comments were really bad.
Yeah, but I still come back to it, and I me, I try and defend us. But the choice of language that they used in that incident, that it was maybe this and it looked a wee bit more than that. Sorry, you can't have that. And if that's the way that they've been taught, then it's a management issue. But I'm also blaming the ref for it as well, because if I'm refereeing and somebody says to me, it looks a wee bit more this way than the other, I say, well, I'm not interested. You tell me what it is. And if you can't tell me what it is, then we're going with what I'm going to decide. It was a disaster.
Yeah, like obviously, like we'll move into kind of action over the weekend. Like as you said, the guy you mentioned, the two games this weekend, and I don't think he was. It was such a quiet weekend. The only game that had a couple of incidents in it was the Rangers Aberdeen game that Andrew Dallas was involved in. But just one thing I was going to touch on regarding England, because this weekend was obviously the introduction of semi-automated offsides in the Premier League. Now, again, it's one of those that we can have the debate. Is it going to come in Scotland? We'll see we'll have that debate, I imagine, in a minute. But one thing I thought was really good about it was how quick it was.
No, yeah, it was noticeably different. And I personally, I think if it's something that's going to help us, then absolutely you go for it. It was the first. Other people have used it in other parts of the world, but the first week in England, and I can't think of anything, any glaring cock-ups for it. But I'm still same as you. I don't think that we've got deep enough pockets that we can add anything in. If our VAR setup just now is as scantily equipped as it is, we're not going to dish out any more money for that. But again, that just shows us up to be a bit of a country yokel.
And that is the kind of speed process of it as well, because we're still drawing the lines, which is fine. Like I get obviously why that needs to happen, but you saw, particularly with the Kieran Tierney goal, it was like a 3-minute decision here took 10 seconds, just because they had it there. And it is, I imagine it's going to cost a lot of money, but it's something that I think we really need to look at, and something that I think will probably there'll be a clamour for, certainly, because if there's any sort of way to speed the process, it certainly has to be looked into.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, you saw it was Alistair Blair again. Was talking this week or last week, and he's the one that canvasses punters, saying that the vast majority of normal people, normal football punters, hate it. They want a shot of it. So anything that can speed it up, and anything that can stop destroying normal people's love of football has to be worth a go.
Yep, absolutely. But we will move into the action over the weekend. Not a lot happened in terms of Saturday. Celtic won 5-1 against Kilmarnock. Obviously, like the way that results would have went, they would have won the title. Again, it is just a matter of when Celtic win the championship. Like they actually are already champions. They've got 42 goal difference.
42, yeah.
So it's like, it's definitely going to be Celtic's as soon as possible. But Celtic, there was an incident in the Celtic game, and again, we were talking about this off air. I haven't seen this, but apparently there was a clamour for a foul on Arnie Engels. I haven't seen it at all. I don't know what people are talking about, but apparently Dermot Gallagher was pretty strong on it, saying it was not a red card. But
some of the things we've heard from Dermot Gallagher beggar belief anyway. But I've been off and on the internet and the various platforms, and I haven't heard a single thing about it. So whatever it is hasn't raised anybody's hackles up here.
Nah, like as I say, like a tight offside call for Ida again, the right call. Engels challenging Donnelly, never a red card. That's what I've got here. Nothing really happened in all three games. You were going to say about the Motherwell Hearts game towards maybe the end. There could have been a wee bit of
Yeah,
speedier
I mean,
process.
and this really is nitpicking because there was nothing else to talk about. Kevin finished the Motherwell Hearts game on a corner. Why didn't he just let the corner be taken? Now that really is nitpicking, and apologies to Kevin.
But that was kind of the weekend, like particularly on Saturday, nothing happened at all. Like it was like St Mirren clinched top six, Motherwell Hearts in the bottom six as well. Motherwell, Dundee United probably giving St Johnstone another kind of massive hurdle to climb. Sunday, Hibs were clinical again, 4-0 against Dundee. And Aberdeen Rangers kind of had the most headlines because it was three incidents. I wanted to start first of all with the two yellow cards shown to Ross McCausland just before half time. I have said in another podcast that I think Ross McCausland was way out of his depth in this environment, like in terms of where he was playing in his position, but probably led to it. But I don't think anybody can complain about the two yellow cards. They were just unnecessary and the right call by the referee.
Oh, absolutely. That's all you can say about it. And I think I agree with your analysis. He really was a fish out of water. And I think that's probably unfair on him. But that was just too... I don't think it's a slight on the boy's character at all, but that was just two stupid tackles. And yeah, you can't complain about yellows for either.
The incident with the disallowed Aberdeen goal is something that has got a lot of people talking. Particularly, we've had a few comments regarding this. The incident with the handball. Now, the goal was disallowed because Kevin Nisbet handled the ball, but a lot of people have said, but Cyril Dessers handled the ball as well, so why wasn't it a penalty?
From the only thing that I can recollect from that is that it looked as though it barely brushed Dessers, so I wouldn't be given a penalty for that.
Well, my thought was it was his hand was in his arm was in a perfect natural position.
Not an issue at all. But Nisbet, to be honest, I think if that had rebounded to somebody else, I think that goal probably would have stood because it hit Nisbet's arm and things were spinning about in there. So he was all over. He was balancing more than anything. But it definitely hit his arm. But he scored straight from it. And that was the clincher. So if somebody else had got onto that, I think that the goal would have stood. But because Kevin Nisbet it hit his hand and then he scored straight from it, they have to disallow it.
Yeah, well, the kind of law does state that no matter the attacking player, no matter if it hits his arm, if it's in a natural position or not, the goal has to get disallowed. Yeah. So there's no debate here. I just don't get, like, it is a weird law, like how, like, you can get a penalty for it if it's in the other end, but the goal gets disallowed if it doesn't matter the natural, unnatural. It's just the way the laws have been written. But
yeah, I mean, I can see what they were. I can see what they were aiming at, but I think it's hilarious now, and that, you know, the same kind of tenet with the Rangers goal or the sending off midweek. One of the founding principles of FIFA is that they were invented partly to uphold the simplicity of the laws of the game.
Yeah,
they've veered off that quite dramatically.
They have indeed. Now that's a problem I've got as well with the other incident, which again a lot of people, Aberdeen fans, and I get why we're saying, and I kind of, when you watch this back, I can kind of understand where they're coming from with it. During the equaliser, there is a second ball on the park. Now, back in the day where I would have been kind of playing football or watching football at a young age, probably when you were refereeing, if there was another ball in the park, the game gets stopped. That isn't the case now, though. Going by that.
No, it just says when's next feasible to take it off. So if the ball's not interfering with anything, you leave it alone. Sort it out later.
But no impact on the goal.
Yeah, in my day, you would have stopped it and restarted, but they changed that. I can't even remember. It was that long ago. So no issue with it. But old guys like you and me, it would have been an automatic stop.
And that again, like, I can see where people are coming from, because like if I you have seen balls in the park and you thought, oh wait a minute, that game should be stopped. But because the laws have kind of changed, you don't really see it now, so it doesn't really matter. Like, it doesn't change anything. But no, that kind of sums up the weekend because hardly anything happened. And
No.
part of me kind of is like, oh, at least we're not talking about kind of nonsense stuff. But part of me is also like, I want more stuff to get into, like, because it's fairly quiet. Like,
yeah, but how many weekends have any of us seen where there really wasn't anything to talk about?
There wasn't. And again, it kind of shows that a good weekend. At least there's not like usual weekends where we're having to come on and be really kind of harsh on a referee. Like, that's the problem, because that has been the case for a long, long time, particularly this season, where we've had to come on and say, by the way, the referee got this totally wrong. But not a lot has happened this week. Obviously, we were hoping to get Des, but hopefully we'll get him back next week. Cup semi-final next weekend. Steve, Celtic St Johnstone, and we also have Aberdeen versus Hearts. Pretty interesting games, I think.
After last week, I would have assumed that Celtic would be a shoe-in, but that shows you what assumptions make.
Aberdeen and Hearts is quite interesting because both sides, I think, are desperate to get something about their season. Aberdeen obviously are still going for Europe, but Hearts bottom six. Like, Hearts, a lot of Hearts fans will be desperate to win this, so they'll not be overly happy about the direction.
They won't be happy. No, they won't be happy. Apart from being really off it this season, at the start of the year when they were down at the bottom with Hibs, at least they had the comfort that Hibs were rotten as well. But you know, that's just changed completely. But I've got a funny feeling that Hearts will do it.
Okay, so you're going Hearts Celtic. I think I'll go Hearts Celtic as well. Actually, I think Hearts will get a result against Aberdeen. I didn't think Aberdeen were particularly great against Rangers. I thought they were decent enough, but I thought Rangers were deplorable in stages.
I thought it was two pretty bad teams.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think if you would say to a lot of Hibs fans, if they could turn their form on at the start of the season, they could have given Rangers a real scare for second.
Absolutely,
like,
if they played like that. Yeah. But we, if you think back, remember the game at Celtic Park. Celtic eventually won, but Hibs were brilliant, and they were still down at the bottom. And we said then, not to blow our own trumpet, that playing like that, there's not a chance that Hibs were going to end up in that position.
No. They're actually. I don't think a lot of Hibs fans. I think a lot of Hibs fans that were maybe saying for David Gray, maybe time to move on. Like, I think a lot of them will be secretly quite happy with how it's turned out, but they'll also be like, oh, I can't believe we actually thought like that. But that's the way of the world. Steve, pleasure as always, mate. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week.
Delightful being on with you again, Scott. All the best.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.